An official welcome to another SGA meeting, this time on the topic of energy efficiency and the energy saving plugin for Godot, which was developed by Ashe Foltin, who is here with us today. Ashe is also one of the founders of the Bold Beetle games and, yeah, the maker of the Power-Saving plugin. We will start with a short introduction of the Power-Saving plugin by Ashe, and we will follow up with a discussion together with Chris Vogel, who is the founder of Greenwave Games. Yeah, I'm Maria Wagner. I'm the managing director of the Sustainable Games Alliance, and we are a global nonprofit cooperative helping the games industry to be more energy efficient and resource efficient in general, and of course also reduce emissions. With no further ado, I would like to hand over to Ashe. Thank you, Ashe.
Thank you. Let me share my screen. So I wanted to start out by explaining where the energy efficiency plugin started and what use case it serves. So when I started looking into energy efficiency and when I joined the Sustainable Games Alliance, there wasn't like the standard that the Sustainable Games Alliance has released, but there were a lot of things like the Xbox Sustainability Guide, which is just white text and a lot of information. And it can be a lot to take in, and it's not very, it is not very concise and indie friendly. But once I actually started parsing all of this information, once I started reading into the case studies, I found that it is actually very, very easy to save a lot of energy when making games with a few lines of code. And so I started implementing that into our game. And then I thought, hey, this is a really useful tool. And I thought, hey, maybe we could release this code separately, make it open source, and turn it into a plugin for Godot, so that other developers can use it. Mostly not because it's hard to develop, but because it creates visibility and it creates attention around the topic, and it makes people aware that this is something that exists. And so right now, if you have any project in Godot, you can go, I need to, yeah, you can go up here to the asset lib, and you can just search for energy saver. And it is there. You can press on it and click download. It is very straightforward to download. And once you have it in your game, it is very easy to set up as well. So in the add-on, I've created an example scene here. And right now I remove the energy saving plugin. And if I just run this, we will see that it is a lot of very high poly objects being rendered at the screen all at once. And we have the ability to pause the game. That is everything that there is in this example. And if we switch over to my task manager, we can see this is when I started the game, and this is what it is doing to my GPU usage. You can also see the temperature. Right now it's at 80 degrees Celsius. But if I just close the game, the GPU usage drops down, and my GPU temperature drops down. So like this is an example of a very unoptimized scene. And this is just out of the box Godot, how it would render this. Now, if we have the plugin installed and we go to project settings, plugins, and also enable it here, we can just add it to the scene and then search for energy saver. So, and that just adds in the energy saver. There are a lot of settings exposed here and some things for us to configure. So the first thing we need to do is set the game node. This is a typical setup here where we can just say, okay, this is our game. And this information gets used for the from the energy saver plugin for a bunch of settings, for a bunch of things later. The energy plugin also changes the default FPS of the game. This is something from the sustainability toolkit, because you can change in the project settings, you can change the max FPS. By default, the frame rate is uncapped. It is with VSync, so it will match your monitor's frame rate. But for example, I have a 240 hertz monitor, so the game is trying to run at 240 FPS. By simply limiting the game FPS to 60, we are already saving a lot of energy. And that is actually the main savings that we have. So if I just open this back up and I go into the task manager, we can already see like the GPU usage has dropped considerably and the temperature is also not rising anymore. Um, so just by doing this very simple setting, we've already minimized our GPU workload by quite a lot. And that is without impacting the player experience because as you can't see past 60 FPS. Most normal people can't, right? So that is the first thing that the plugin does. Um, then the other part is the idle settings. So there's a different frame rate for when the player isn't pressing any input because that's when the plugin goes into idle mode. So here for right now, it's just 1 frame per second, and it will take 120 seconds to go to idle mode. Once it does that, it will pause the tree, which we gave it over here, and it will also turn on the low processor mode to save on CPU usage as well. So I can just set the time to idle to 10 seconds for now. And if I start up um, sorry, I also need to set, yeah, it doesn't work well with the time to dim if the time to dim is higher. So this is the idle mode, but there's also a screen dim because OLED screens will use more energy if the screen is brighter. So let's just say like after 60 seconds, the screen will start dimming and it will dim all the way to full dark. So let's also change that. So after 3 seconds, the screen will start dimming and then the time to idle is 6 seconds. So after 3 seconds, it will start to dim, and after 6 seconds, it will go into idle mode where it is fully dim. So now if we wait 3 seconds, the screen will get darker, and then the game will go into idle mode. And if I open up my task manager again, we can now see that the game isn't using any GPU at all. And if we tap back in, the game will go back and the GPU usage will go up again. So that is how we can save energy there. And then the last setting the energy saver has is the menu FPS. So the idea is that in menus, you don't need your reaction time. You don't need that fast input. So you can even like reduce the frame rate in menus further to save more on energy. And for that, you do need a bit of code. So this is the very simple code I have for the pause menu. It is just a button that turns the pause menu visible or invisible. And what we have here is the code we have for the energy saver. So if we want to tell the energy saver that we are in a menu and that we should reduce the FPS, we just tell it energy saver.enter menu. And if we exit the menu, we tell it energy saver.exit menu. So with the visibility code, we can just say here. And now every time the pause menu gets visible, we enter the menu. And other than that, it will exit. Right, so it's going good. If I pause here, we can see that this GPU usage does dip a bit. It goes back up for reasons that are unknown to me, but this is just hardware specific. So you see these dips that are usually caused in the pause menu by the lowered frame rate. And then there are also other things. So the energy saver also comes with two signals, lose focus and regain focus. And we can use that to just say, okay, on lose focus, we can, for example, enter the pause menu here. And then, of course, we want to also tell the energy saver that we are in a menu now. So what this does is like if I'm here playing the game now, but I minimize the window, the game will automatically pause for me, which is a quite nice quality of life feature, but it can also mean that, that we are saving energy when the player isn't looking at the game, and we're making sure that they don't need to pause and are missing much of the gameplay. And that is really everything that the energy saver does. And what I think is nice about it is that the code is very, very simple. Um, and it's very easy to understand. And I like that about it, and that's how I wanted to build it, because I wanted something that can be built upon by others, that can be understood by others. Um, so that this topic of like, oh, I'm saving energy for my game, that sounds hard. It isn't, and this system shows you that. There are also for customization, like it uses the idle screen here, so it is just a blank screen, and I can just say like I can change the text here to fit my needs and change the style so that you can edit it to fit your own branding. And the screen darken is really just a black rectangle for the screen dimming, right? So if we now wait for the idle mode to kick in, it will change to that custom text. Yeah, this is the tool. It is really easy to just plug into any Godot game right off the bat, and it implements a lot of the energy guidelines from Xbox, which can reduce your energy usage by up to 20%, and even maybe like if like different games have different uses. So for example, Call of Duty, they save 20% of energy saving mostly by capping the frame rate. Meanwhile, games like Fortnite save 15% mostly by having idle states and menus. So by combining these different tools, we really have the potential to save a lot of energy where it isn't needed. That is the tool.
Nice. Awesome. Actually, before I hand over to Chris, who also tested it, actually, I have like one question because like many times we talk about like the climate and how it's good, to save energy, but of course it also has like benefits for the players. Can you quickly say like what are the benefits for the players as well?
For sure. I mean, the idea of energy saving is becoming more relevant as mobile devices are becoming more relevant. We're seeing more people play on Steam Deck, and Steam is also recommending people to cap their frame rate even as low as 40 FPS. But the problem is to do that on the Steam Deck manually is very hard for consumers. Um, and it can also cause unwanted problems. So by reducing the frame rate from the get-go, and if we as developers go one step further and optimize a maximum FPS setting in our game options, we can we can give the player tools to play our games longer and find more enjoyment on like rides. And similar ideas are also true about saving when or pausing when the game is minimized, because you don't want to get killed if you like tab out of a game and it keeps running in the background, right? It's just a nice quality of life feature, which also just happens to save energy. And it's good that you mentioned it because that is a good thing to understand about energy efficiency. It's not about making the game worse to save the planet. It is about making the game better and reducing the carbon emissions alongside that.
Cool, awesome. Thank you so much. Yeah, and I mean, Chris, you tested it. Yeah, please.
Thank you. Yeah, I tested it on some Godot projects, mainly 3D projects, and also with different Godot versions. And I found it really, really easy to use. So yeah, that was really good. I think it took me like 5 minutes to have like the simplest version. Just that I think it was just a dimming because I didn't change anything in the menu and it worked already. So that's really nice. And I think with 10-minute time most people should be able to do this. So that's very cool. Yeah, thank you also for making it open source, for developing it. I think this will help a lot of people, hopefully even on game jams. That would be nice. Yeah, so now I would like to open the floor for questions. So in case anybody has questions, you can use the chat or you can like raise your hand. Then I will take you to the stage. And if not, I have prepared some questions. So also feel free to take your time. So the first question is like, I also talked about the Godot versions. For which Godot versions is it possible to use the plugin?
I tested it for, like it is developed in the 4.x version of Godot, and I specifically tested it with 4.2 and onwards. I think it's using some features that are not available yet in 4.1 and 4.0, but it is compatible with 4.2 and up to the latest releases.
Okay, nice. Would it be usable with C Sharp, especially maybe the exit and enter menu? Have you tried that yet?
That's a good question. So, I mean, it runs obviously in the mono because that's how Godot works. Um, but I think it is possible to call standard functions from C Sharp, so it shouldn't be an issue, especially because everything is open source. It is, it works. It should work really well, but unfortunately, I haven't tested it yet because I don't personally program in C Sharp.
Yeah, that makes, I think GDScript is just great for Godot actually. Is it, have you tested it with major platforms like, does it work on Windows, like, and Mac and so on? Like, have you tested that or, yeah, do you think
Um,
it should work, right?
so the game it only uses like pre-built functions from the Godot editor and pre-built nodes. So everything that Godot supports, this plugin supports. So you should be able to port it and use it on any hardware that you want to use it on.
Nice, true.
That's important because we also like want it to be used on phones, right?
Hmm.
Um, where battery life is actually an issue. And if you put your phone down running an expensive game, that can quickly kill your battery and overheat your phone. So having these features there is really important.
Nice. Um, so yeah, the next question we already had, how long does it take to install the plugin? It's really fast. You already talked about the specific techniques that you use. Um, I think it doesn't work differently for 2D projects or 3D projects, right? I mean, probably the energy saving is higher with more complex scenes.
Yes, definitely. So, I mean, 2D projects are generally just use less energy by default. Um, but the more realistic the game is, the more energy there is to be saved, especially in idle modes, where nothing is happening. But the basic principle remains the same.
Nice. So, maybe a bit of a mean question. Do you know any edge cases where the plugin couldn't work, or do you think usually it should work?
So there aren't any edge cases, but I think there are games where it maybe won't work. So for example, idle games are the best example because you don't want an idle mode that is in your idle game. But there are like other things those games can do. So if you're an idle game developer, you can, for example, think about like, do I really need this game to be running at 60 frames per second or even higher? Maybe setting the default frame rate to 40 would be good, and then exposing the setting to other users so that people can, especially with idle games, have a lower battery usage per default if they have it running in the background. So that is like an edge case
Makes
of a
sense.
game.
Makes sense. Yeah, nice. So since it's an open source project, like what are your plans with it? Do you plan to update it? Are you looking for other developers to jump in and develop new things? Did you think about that?
I would love to see the Godot community pick this idea up and run with it. Because to be frank, I am not even a full-time programmer and I haven't been formally taught as a programmer. So I think there are a lot of things that can be cleaner about the project. I also think that there are a lot of things that if as sustainability in games grows, we can build into this plugin as well. Um, and while I do want to maintain it, the I think what it hopefully will do is inspire others to implement similar features and create a discussion, and then maybe have this plugin just grow like with open source contributions. Um, but even if not, if just more people are out there writing their own version of the plugin for their own needs, for their own projects, that is, I think, the also just a desirable outcome. So long as the energy usage of games goes down, I don't think it matters how what tool gets used.
Great. Thank you so much. Um, I think these were all the questions that were there. Thank you so much for answering them. And yeah, I give to Maria again, I guess.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris and Ash. I actually have a question for you, Chris, because so why were you excited about this? Because I mean, yeah, I basically reached out to yeah, like in the void of developers, and you came back and said, "Hey, this is cool. I want to try it out." What was your thoughts behind it?
Yeah, I think this is such an important topic to think about how we can reduce the energy usage in games, because I mean, this is such a big medium, and we would have such a big, yeah, footprint if we could do it right and if we could do it better. And also, I love Godot. I think Godot is an amazing engine, and I hope that it will be used much more in commercial games in the coming years. So this combination of things was really something like I'm really excited about this, and I'm happy to see where it goes.
Okay, awesome. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much, guys.